Floating against the vast southern sky, the Australian national flag is a mosaic of symbols, a trio of crosses, a constellation, and a single, radiant star. To many, it is an unambiguous emblem of pride, flown from suburban homes, celebrated at international sporting arenas, and solemnly carried by soldiers. Yet, to an increasing number of Australians, it is a contested symbol, a relic of a colonial past that struggles to represent the complex, multicultural, and independent nation of the 21st century. The flag is not merely a piece of cloth, it is a mirror reflecting Australia's evolving identity. A narrative woven from threads of colonial allegiance, wartime sacrifice, and a persistent, often impassioned, debate about the nation's past and its future. The story of the flag begins with the birth of the nation itself. As the 6 disparate British colonies on the continent moved towards unification, the sentiment for a unique national emblem grew. With the proclamation of the Commonwealth of Australia on January 1, 1901, the new government launched a public competition to design a flag for the fledgling nation. The response was overwhelming, with over 32,000 entries reflecting the popular imagination. The winning design, or rather a composite of several similar entries, was unveiled in Melbourne on September 3, 1901. Its composition was a deliberate and symbolic choice, articulating the identity of the new Commonwealth. Its elements tell a story of geography, loyalty, and political structure. In the upper hoist, the canton, sits the Union Jack, the flag of the United Kingdom. Its inclusion was non-negotiable at the time, an overt declaration of Australia's place within the British Empire, its inherited traditions of parliamentary democracy, and the common law. Below the Jack is the large, 7-pointed Commonwealth Star, or Federation Star. 6 of its points represent the original 6 states, while the 7th, added in 1908, symbolizes the territories. In the flag, the 5 stars of the Southern Cross are depicted, a constellation visible only from the southern hemisphere that had served as a navigator's guide for centuries and had been used in colonial insignia for decades. Most famously on the Eureka flag of 1854, a symbol of rebellion that has since been claimed by diverse political movements. Together, these elements presented Australia as a distinct entity in the southern seas. A unified federation, yet fundamentally a child of Britain. For the first half of the 20th century, the flag's identity was forged in the crucible of war. While its official status was somewhat ambiguous, with the British blue ensign designated for government use and a red ensign for merchant shipping, it was under these banners that Australians served. The flag became inextricably linked with the Anzac legend, draped over the coffins of soldiers at Gallipoli and raised on the Kokoda Tract. In these contexts, it ceased to be a mere symbol of imperial connection and became infused with a unique sense of Australian sacrifice and nascent nationhood. This emotional weight was formally recognised in 1953 when Prime Minister Robert Menzies, a staunch monarchist, passed the Flags Act, confirming the blue ensign as the Australian national flag. This act sought to cement a particular vision of Australian identity at a time of Cold War anxieties, reaffirming a traditional, British-oriented heritage. However, as Australia evolved, so did its relationship with its primary symbol. The post-war era saw a massive wave of migration from across Europe and, later, Asia, fundamentally reshaping the country's demographic landscape. The proud Anglo-Celtic nation began to see itself as a multicultural society. Simultaneously, Australia's geopolitical focus shifted from Europe to the Asia-Pacific, and its constitutional ties with Britain loosened. It was in this climate of change that the Great Flag debate took root. The central argument against the flag is that the Union Jack in a position of prominence signifies a subservience that is no longer accurate or appropriate for a sovereign, independent nation. It is seen by critics as anchoring Australia's identity in a colonial past, rather than reflecting its modern reality. This critique extends to a profound sense of exclusion. For many Indigenous Australians, the flag that represents the nation is a symbol of the very empire that dispossessed them of their lands and suppressed their cultures. It tells a story that begins with British settlement, effectively ignoring the 65,000 years of history that preceded it. The vibrant colors of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags, both now official flags of Australia, stand in stark contrast, representing a connection to land, people, and culture that the national flag is perceived to overlook. Similarly, for Australians whose heritage is not British, the Union Jack can feel alienating, a symbol that speaks of one strand of the national story but fails to encompass the whole. Proponents of the current flag counter these arguments with powerful appeals to history and tradition. Organized by groups like the Australian National Flag Association, ANFA, they argue that the flag represents the historical journey of the nation, including its British foundations, which are undeniable. To remove the Union Jack, they contend, is not an act of maturity but an act of historical erasure. More potently, they evoke the memory of the hundreds of thousands of Australians who have served and died under the flag. For them, changing the flag would be a profound disrespect to this sacrifice, severing a tangible link with the nation's most solemn moments. They see the flag as a settled symbol of unity, and the debate as a divisive distraction pushed by an intellectual elite out of touch with mainstream sentiment. The debate has ebbed and flowed for decades, peaking during moments of national introspection like the 1988 bicentennial and the 2000 Sydney Olympics. While it has not yet reached a critical political mass to force a referendum, it has spurred a creative flurry of alternative designs. These proposals, often championed by organizations like AusFlag, provide a fascinating insight into what a different symbolic Australia might look like. Recurring motifs include the Southern Cross and the Commonwealth Star, but they are often paired with uniquely Australian elements. The kangaroo, a globally recognized symbol of Australian fauna, is a popular choice. The nation's sporting colors of green and gold feature prominently, as does the golden wattle, the national floral emblem. Some designs seek to incorporate elements from the Aboriginal flag, attempting a symbolic reconciliation within the fabric of the flag itself. Ultimately, the Australian flag remains a symbol in tension. It simultaneously represents a historical allegiance and a modern independence, a unified federation in a contested history. The passionate arguments it provokes are not just about a design, but about the very definition of Australian identity. Is Australia primarily an inheritor of British traditions, or is it a multicultural Pacific nation whose identity is still being formed? Can one flag ever truly represent the ancient heritage of its first peoples alongside the stories of its colonial settlers and its newest immigrants? The flag, in its current form, tells one version of that story. The ongoing debate about whether to change it ensures that the narrative of what it means to be Australian remains a dynamic and unfinished one.